Is it just me, or there are a lot of cozy games lately, and most of them are not very fun? Hi, hello, I'm Alyssa, and before we get started, I have something very important I want to state. This is just my opinion, and criticisms stated in this video about what you like or enjoy do not constitute an attack on you, the people you care about, or the game developers who made them. Making games is incredibly hard, and the fact these developers poured themselves into a game and put it into the world for people to enjoy, much less have an opinion over, should be celebrated. Now, I've been playing video games my whole life, and I'm not gonna go into my resume of video game playing just to justify that I'm a gamer. You're just gonna have to take my word for it, considering more than 50% of the world plays video games. And of all my hobbies, I spend the most amount of time playing video games. The next is probably reading. And over the last few years, I've seen an exponential increase in the number of cozy games being released, and as such, a rise to the cozy game influencer. The cozy game influencer, their content tends to, in my opinion, more or less just showcase the mere existence of the cozy game and rarely provides a review or how good the game is or whether or not they even enjoyed it. As one TikTok creator pointed out, it feels incredibly frustrating to keep trying so many of these cozy games only to realize they look cute, they look cozy, but they are rarely fun. I love that there are influencers focused on showcasing a specific genre of games, especially because tens of thousands of video games are released each year. And that makes discovery for video games really hard. But after watching Why Cozy Games Suck by Cora Mora just a few months ago, I've been thinking about what the fuck even is a cozy game? Is it a cozy game because of its aesthetics, its mechanics, its pacing, its lack of violence or combat? Or has the term cozy game kind of become a catch-all for games that are cute looking and life sim, or games that are cute and just targeted at women? In 2013, Polygon published an incredible, very long feature story about the history of video game marketing and the impact it had on creating a stereotype that video games were for boys. And we have been living in the negative effects of the shadows of those decisions ever since. The stereotype still very much plagues the industry. You can see this with who gets funded, who people are that have the commentary of who a real gamer is. I don't know about you, but I've never seen a woman say, "Oh, they're not a real gamer." Doesn't mean it hasn't happened, but I've certainly seen plenty of men and young boys say that certain games aren't real games and the people who play them are not real gamers. And I believe that all video games are games, and that anyone who plays any kind of video game is a gamer, and that shitting on another person's choice of video game is, quite frankly, beta behavior. But what the fuck is a cozy game? Nintendo defines cozy games as games you'd play when you're curled up under a comfy blanket or sipping your favorite hot beverage. But I don't know about you. That's all of them. Every game, I want to be in a blanket with my favorite hot beverage, and it doesn't matter if I'm playing a cozy life sim or a game where I'm yelling at the screen, "Oh, come on, what in the actual fuck, and fuck this game." A Reddit thread on r/cozy gamers has a bunch of people offering their own personal definitions of what cozy gaming is, and there was a lot of really broad definitions. The most common broad definitions are farming or life sim, games with warm colors, easy to play, laid back, no combat, exploration, customization. But to me, I don't feel like that's necessarily what makes a cozy game. Best definition that I saw in that Reddit thread, and is one I mostly agree with, is that cozy games are games that allow you to get lost in them without feeling stressed or pressured. They invoke a feeling of relaxation, happiness, or curiosity. It's probably my favorite definition. One Redditor even described how they like to play Skyrim as an alchemist, avoiding combat, collecting stuff, making potions, and role-playing with themselves as they travel through the world of Skyrim, selling their wares. And another Redditor described Silent Hill as a cozy game for them. I don't know if I can agree with that, like, although I do know some people who find scary stuff to be comforting and cozy, so who knows? Maybe. But you certainly wouldn't see Silent Hill tagged with the cozy tag on Steam, now would you? In November 2022, Games Industry Biz published an article titled, "What are cozy games and what makes them cozy?" So the subheadline mentions wholesome games, and I'm not 100% on board with the idea that something needs to be wholesome for it to be cozy. Mainly because I'm about to start working on a game as a solo dev for a game that I believe to be cozy, but definitely not wholesome or family friendly. The qualities this article listed for games to be considered cozy kind of made me feel like it's a little infantilizing. And I know that's probably not what they meant, but the idea that cozy games have socialization with NPCs or humans that is almost always in an agreeable way, unless it's for comedic relief, or that the aesthetics are usually or need to be colorful and pastel, or that it needs jolly and nursery-ish music. That's what it said, nursery-ish music, and no peril. I don't know about you, but that's not how I would personally describe a cozy game. Not that long ago, I recall a Twitter mutual lamenting about how some of the cozy games coming out didn't seem that interesting to her because they had this bubblish, childlike animation, and it was a huge turnoff. And I have to agree. If a game has the same animation style that you might see with one of those kids' YouTube channels that are popping off, I'm not certain that I could get past that enough to play the game to see if the game's any good. Though if you do enjoy that art style, that animation style, please, by all means, it's just not for me. And I'm not on board with the idea that cozy games need to be any of the things listed above. And the idea that the term cozy is a catch-all for a category of games that are targeting women, soft women, you know, the pastel princess type vibes. That's a very similar aesthetic that I find that a lot of the cozy gamers have on influencers, at least the ones that I follow. And I do enjoy their content. But it's for targeting women. And to be clear, before you go off in the comments, I think marketing games to women is great. And we should do it more. But are we boiling down what we think women like or enjoy by framing games in this way? In my mind, it's not too dissimilar to how Book Talk reduces books to tropes when they talk about them versus the qualities or the story elements that make them unique or interesting or why someone should read the book. And much like we're seeing a rise in traditional wife content and content obsessing over having the perfect home and cooking the perfect meal. I mean, this content's always been around, but I feel like in times of high stress, these things tend to skyrocket. And I do think there's a little bit of a potential correlation there, though someone smarter than me studying humans should look into it, with cozy games. And I don't think it's a mistake. We're somehow back to stereotypes for games and who plays what game. Even though it's been proven time and time again that all types of people play all types of games. It's clear these games are trying to capture a market they believe isn't catered to. And maybe it isn't that the audience hasn't already been catered to, rather it's been catered to mostly by people who think they know what these segment of gamers want, and those gamers are making do, like they always have, with what's available. One of the best talks I sat in on was last year, actually, and I believe it was the president of that game company discussing attracting diverse players to their games and how the importance of telling emotionally enriching stories was a very core ingredient to attracting diverse players. And that is ultimately what I think a lot of cozy games are missing: an emotionally enriching story or environment. Many of them, at least to me, feel like a chore simulator and in pretty youthful colors. And while some of those chore simulators are done really well, I can only play a chore simulator for so long before it feels too repetitive. But I have ADHD, so that could just be me. But I think the impact of these games being all too similar is that many people will become wary of buying cozy games. Thank you for hanging out and listening. Let me know in the comments, what does cozy game mean to you? And if you could only ever recommend one cozy game and you had to have played it, what would it be?